Despite popular belief, Mount Everest is not the most difficult mountain to climb in the world. There are many lesser-known mountains that are much more dangerous. So join me, I'm counting down 15 of the hardest mountains to climb in the world, starting with number 15, K2. K2, the second highest mountain in the world, stands as one of the most formidable and dangerous peaks for climbers. It's located in the Karakoram Range between the border of Pakistan and China. It rises to an imposing 28,251 feet above sea level. Now, it is known as the Savage Mountain. It's earned a reputation for difficulty. Despite being overshadowed by the height of Mount Everest, K2 is considered a far more challenging climb, attracting only the most skilled and daring mountaineers. Unlike Everest, which has been summited thousands of times, K2 has seen far fewer successful ascents. As of August 2023, only around 800 people have reached the summit. The mountain's steep faces and sharp ridges demand exceptional technical skill. The most commonly used route to the summit is the Abruzzi Spur on the southeast ridge, which was first successfully climbed by an Italian team in 1954. This route, while the most popular, is fraught with danger. Climbers have to navigate exposed sections like House's Chimney, a 100-foot vertical crack, and the Black Pyramid, a steep rocky outcrop. But the most infamous part of the climb is the Bottleneck Couloir, a narrow, steep slope just below the summit, overshadowed by unstable seracs, these massive ice formations that can collapse without warning. Extreme conditions here, combined with the thin atmosphere at those high altitudes, create an environment where survival is a constant battle. In the death zone above 26,000 feet, the oxygen levels are so low that human life can only be sustained for very brief periods. This is where many climbers have met their end, either due to exhaustion, falls, or being caught in avalanches. Number 14, Kanchenjunga. Kanchenjunga, standing at 28,169 feet, is the third highest mountain in the world and a formidable challenge for even the most experienced climbers. It's located in the heart of the Himalayas. This massif straddles the border between Nepal's Taplejung district and India's Sikkim state. This mountain is revered in local folklore as the abode of mythical creatures like the Yeti, and it demands respect, not just for its height, but for its daunting and unpredictable nature. It's composed of 5 prominent peaks, which together form one of the most dramatic and imposing mountains in the world. These peaks, Main, Central, South, West, and Kangbachen, create an expansive massif that's been the focus of mountaineers since the mid-19th century. Until 1852, Kanchenjunga was believed to be the highest mountain on Earth, a title it lost only after the Great Trigonometrical Survey of India confirmed that Mount Everest surpassed it. The terrain here is a complex mix of snow, ice, and rock, with dangerous glaciers and steep ridges that require exceptional technical climbing skills. The Yalung Face, a 10,000-foot-high wall of snow and ice, is a particularly challenging section of this climb. This face features the Great Shelf, a large sloping plateau covered by a precarious hanging glacier. And it's also situated along tectonic plates that are still highly active, leading to frequent earthquakes and landslides. The monsoon season from June to September is dangerous here due to heavy rainfall, which increases the risk of landslides and avalanches. Climbers typically aim to summit during the dry season from October to May, where the weather is more stable. However, even during this period, conditions are harsh, with temperatures plummeting well below the freezing point at night, and can reach nearly 100 degrees while the sun is up. Number 13, Manaslu. Manaslu, at 26,781 feet, is the 8th highest mountain in the world. It's located in the remote Mansiri Himal range of the Nepalese Himalayas. This peak is also known as Kutang. It's often referred to as the Mountain of the Spirit. Well, despite that spiritual name, it presents a formidable challenge. Harsh weather conditions and technical climbing requirements. This mountain has earned a reputation as one of the more dangerous 8,000-meter peaks. It was first summited on May 9, 1956 by members of a Japanese expedition, and since then, the mountain has been closely associated with Japanese climbers, much like how Everest is linked to the British. Despite its connection to Japan, Manaslu remains one of the less frequently climbed 8,000-meter peaks, with many expeditions choosing to attempt it in the spring when the weather conditions are relatively more stable. The mountain's location, about 40 miles east of Annapurna, places it in a region that's not easily accessible, adding to the logistical challenges here. Climbing it is no small feat. The route to the summit is technically demanding, with climbers having to navigate through steep ridges, deep snow, and potentially unstable glaciers. The mountain's permanent snow line lies above 16,000 feet, where conditions are consistently challenging. Precipitation here is common, with heavy snowfall during the monsoon season from June to September, which is particularly treacherous due to the increased risk of avalanches and landslides. Number 12. The Matterhorn. The Matterhorn, standing at 14,692 feet, is one of the most iconic and recognizable mountains in the world. It straddles the border between Switzerland and Italy, dominating the skyline with its near-perfect pyramidal shape. But while its striking appearance has made it a symbol of the Alps, the Matterhorn is also notorious for its deadly reputation. Since the first ascent in 1865, over 500 climbers have lost their lives on its slopes, making it one of the most dangerous peaks in the world. The Matterhorn is a challenging climb due to the steep and exposed rock faces, rapid altitude changes, and the unpredictable weather. The mountain's symmetrical pyramid has 4 faces, each aligned with the cardinal directions. The Horlengrat, or Hornley Ridge, is the most popular route to the summit, but it's also fraught with danger. Loose rocks, falling debris, and the threat of avalanches are constant hazards here. The peak's isolated location makes weather conditions particularly volatile. Banner clouds formed by air currents swirling around the mountain can appear suddenly, obscuring visibility and creating some dangerous conditions for climbers. Despite all the dangers, though, the Matterhorn attracts between 3,000 to 4,000 climbers each year. However, the mountain's challenges are often underestimated, leading to a high failure rate. Approximately 65% of those who attempt the climb do not reach the summit, often due to a lack of physical fitness, experience, or understanding these harsh conditions. The Matterhorn's fame extends beyond the climbing community. Its distinctive shape has inspired artists, filmmakers, and even theme park designers. Notably, a large-scale replica of the Matterhorn is a centerpiece at Disneyland, and the mountain's dramatic history has been the subject of numerous films and documentaries. Number 11. Mount Everest. You can't have a list of the hardest mountain climbs without talking about Mount Everest. Standing at 29,031 feet, Mount Everest remains the Earth's highest and most famous mountain. It's located on the border of Nepal and Tibet. Its summit marks the dividing line between the two nations. This massive peak is known not just for its height, but also for the extreme conditions here, unpredictable weather, and congested climbing routes during the peak season. The allure of Everest, however, it's often overshadowed by its dangers. The expedition to the top of Everest is no short journey. Climbers typically spend upwards of 60 days preparing and ascending, facing some of the harshest conditions found anywhere on the planet. With temperatures as low as minus 75 degrees Fahrenheit and winds reaching up to 175 miles an hour, the mountain's environment can be as unforgiving as it is majestic. One of the most notorious sections of the climb is known as the Death Zone, which begins at an altitude of just over 26,000 feet. This part of the climb is infamous for the dangerously low oxygen levels here, where the human body begins to physically deteriorate. For climbers, the Death Zone's not just a challenge during the ascent, but poses even greater risks on the descent. As altitude sickness, fatigue, and physical deterioration set in, the descent through this zone becomes a test of survival. The body's weakened state, combined with freezing temperatures and dangerous terrain, leaves little room for error. The nickname Death Zone is well earned, as climbers who linger too long here face potentially fatal consequences. In addition to its physical challenges, Everest also demands a significant financial investment. The cost of climbing permits for the Nepal route alone can range from $10,000 to $30,000 a person, depending on the size of the expedition. Most climbers hire full-service guide companies, which handle everything from acquiring permits to providing transportation to and from base camp, setting up the tents, cooking meals, and offering medical assistance on the mountain. These services, however, come at a steep cost too, often between $40,000 to $80,000. They heavily rely on the Sherpas, who transport most of the climbers' gear, allowing clients to carry lighter backpacks, typically under 22 pounds. This differs from less commercialized peaks, such as Denali, where climbers have to haul much heavier loads. Number 10. Makalu. At 27,838 feet, Makalu is the 5th highest mountain in the world, yet it remains one of the least visited among the Himalayan giants. Unlike its more famous neighbor, Mount Everest, which is only about 12 miles away, Makalu isn't seen the same influx of climbers and adventurers. This isn't merely due to its relative obscurity, rather it's the mountain's highly technical challenges. It's a peak that tests not just physical endurance, but also your technical skills, making it a challenge even for seasoned mountaineers. To summit here is no small feat. Only around 500 people have successfully reached the peak, a big contrast to the thousands who have summited Everest. The altitude coupled with the strenuous climb increases the risk of altitude sickness and exhaustion. Climbers have to be prepared to face these challenges, as the mountain's location and isolation means that rescue operations, in case of emergencies, are far more complicated. Now, unlike more popular trekking routes in the region, which are dotted with tea huts and villages providing shelter and supplies, the routes to Makalu are barren. The absence of such infrastructure means that climbers have to be entirely self-sufficient. Now, Makalu isn't just a single peak, but part of a broader mountain complex, including two significant subsidiary peaks, Kangchongse and Chomolonzo. Kangchongse, standing at 25,118 feet, lies about 2 miles north-northwest of the main summit. Chomolonzo, slightly taller at 25,627 feet, is located about 3 miles to the north-northeast. These peaks, connected to Makalu by narrow ridges and steep saddles, add to the complexity and the allure of the mountain, offering additional challenges to those who seek them. Number 9. Denali. Denali, also known as Mount McKinley, stands as the highest peak in North America, towering at 20,310 feet. Situated in the remote wilderness of Alaska, Denali isn't just a geographical giant, but it is also a formidable challenge for climbers. This mountain's isolation, coupled with the severe weather and technical difficulties, makes it one of the most challenging and dangerous climbs in the world. The journey to this summit typically takes around 3 weeks, with only about 500 climbers successfully reaching the peak during its peak season each year. However, the difficulty of climbing Denali extends far beyond the technical demands. It's a unique set of challenges, and it begins with the weather. Winds on the mountain can reach speeds of up to 100 miles an hour, while temperatures can plummet to a bone-chilling minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Climbers must also contend with the threat of altitude sickness, which can strike as they ascend to the higher elevations, where the air becomes thinner and oxygen pressure levels drop. Unlike more accessible peaks, Denali offers no easy escape routes or nearby medical facilities in case of an emergency. This isolation means that climbers must be entirely self-sufficient, carrying all their supplies and equipment for the duration of the climb. There are multiple routes to the summit, with at least 30 recognized paths. The Cassin Ridge route is one of the most famous and challenging, attracting the seasoned climbers looking for a more technical ascent. But the most commonly used route today, however, is the West Buttress, pioneered by Bradford Washburn in 1951. This route is considered the safest and easiest, yet it still presents significant challenges, particularly when it comes to acclimatization. Climbers are advised to move at a safe but quick pace between the 4 camps set up along the route, but finding the right balance is critical. Moving too quickly increases the risk of altitude sickness, while moving too slowly can expose climbers to the mountain's brutal weather for way longer periods. Number 8. Dhaulagiri 1. Dhaulagiri 1, at 26,795 feet above sea level, is the 7th highest mountain in the world. It's known locally as the White Mountain due to its perpetually snow-covered peaks. Dhaulagiri 1 is both a majestic and perilous challenge for mountaineers. It does hold a significant place in the climbing community, particularly among those who seek to conquer peaks with the exclusive 8,000-meter category. With over 400 successful summits to date, Dhaulagiri 1 has attracted climbers from around the globe. Its daunting vertical rise, particularly on the south wall, which ascends nearly 15,000 feet from the base to the summit, contributes to its reputation as one of the most difficult peaks. It features 4 primary faces, each offering a unique and difficult path to the summit. The west face, in particular, is the least attempted due to the difficulty, involving intricate navigation over dangerous crevasses and icy inclines. But regardless of the chosen route, climbers have to be prepared to endure extreme conditions. Temperatures here plummet to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit and wind speeds reaching upwards of 62 miles an hour. But despite the challenges, the most commonly attempted route remains the Northeast Ridge, which was first ascended by a Swiss expedition led by Max Iselin on May 13, 1960. This route, while still dangerous, has become the standard due to its relatively lower risk. Dhaulagiri 1's prominence is not only a result of the physical height, but also its historical significance. When it was first surveyed in 1808, Dhaulagiri was considered the highest mountain in the world, until it was surpassed by Kangchenjunga in 1838, and later by Mount Everest in 1858. The mountain was the penultimate 8,000er to be summited and the last in Nepal, further cementing its status as a challenge in the mountaineering world. While despite numerous attempts, the northwest ridge and south face remain unclimbed in their entirety, with the south face often regarding as one of the greatest remaining challenges in mountaineering. Moving on to number 7, Baintha Brock. Baintha Brock, also ominously known as the Ogre, stands as one of the most formidable and elusive climbing challenges in the world. This granite giant, rising over 23,900 feet in the Karakoram range of Pakistan, is renowned for its difficulty and the significant technical demands it places on mountaineers. Located in the Panma Muztagh subrange, Baintha Brock looms over a glacier with its steep, craggy profile, earning it a fearsome reputation in the mountaineering community. Despite its relatively modest elevation compared to some of the world's highest peak, the Ogre's combination of altitude, sheer steepness, and the complexity of its granite faces makes it one of the most challenging climbs on the planet. The mountain's first successful ascent in 1977 by British climbers Doug Scott and Chris Bonington has become the stuff of legend. After 2 unsuccessful attempts in 1971 and 76, Scott and Bonington, along with their team, finally reached the summit via the southwest spur to the west ridge, continuing over the west summit to the main summit. The climb was a groundbreaking achievement requiring advanced rock climbing techniques at an altitude exceeding 23,000 feet, an event that pushed the limits of what had been done in high-altitude mountaineering at the time. However, the descent proved even more harrowing than the ascent. Scott broke both legs during the first rappel from the summit, and Bonington later broke 2 ribs and contracted pneumonia. Despite these severe injuries, they managed to endure a grueling week-long descent through a major storm, eventually reaching base camp where they had to wait for assistance. It took another 24 years before Baintha Brock saw its second ascent. Its reputation as an almost impregnable fortress of rock and ice is well earned. Its south face, for instance, rises over 9,800 feet within a mere 1.2 miles of horizontal distance, presenting a near vertical wall of rock that's thwarted many attempts. The steep and rocky nature here, coupled with its remote location, makes it an attractive, yet daunting target for elite climbers seeking to push their abilities. The Latok Peaks, which lie adjacent to Baintha Brock, share similar characteristics, but it is the Ogre's unrelenting difficulty that sets it apart. Number 6, Annapurna. Annapurna 1, towering at 26,545 feet, is one of the 4 main summits within the Annapurna mountain range, stretching approximately 30 miles between the Kali and Marsyandi rivers in north-central Nepal. Known for its weather conditions and treacherous terrain, Annapurna 1 is infamous for having one of the highest accident rates among the 8,000-meter peaks. While the full Annapurna circuit, a world-renowned trek, can take 12 to 21 days to complete, reaching the summit of Annapurna 1 itself demands upwards of 17 days or more. The name Annapurna, meaning everlasting food in Sanskrit, is derived from the Hindu goddess of food and nourishment, believed to reside on the mountain. Streams descending from the massive slopes provide essential water for the agricultural fields and pastures at lower levels. Its treacherous conditions here are well documented, with climbers facing extreme weather, including avalanches, severe winds, known locally as the Black Wind due to the dust and debris they carry, and temperatures plunging to over minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. The steep icy slopes here challenge seasoned mountaineers, and it contributes to a high accident rate that, despite recent improvements, still hovers around 20%. As of 2022, only 365 climbers have successfully reached the summit, while 72 were not so lucky. Maurice Herzog's French expedition in 1950 marked the first successful ascent of Annapurna 1, making it the first 8,000-meter peak ever climbed. This monumental achievement, however, set the stage for a legacy of peril, and would go on to become one of the most dangerous 8,000ers for decades. In 1978, Arlene Blum became the first woman to summit Annapurna 1, leading an all-female expedition. However, the journey was marked by tragedy, with several members of her team losing their lives. Blum described the climb as grueling and scary work, particularly the challenge of navigating soft, unstable snow and enormous cornices. Despite the dangers, Annapurna 1 remains a coveted prize for climbers, particularly the notorious 9,800-foot south face, considered one of the most difficult climbs in the world. Trekkers also flock here to the conservation area, which encompasses the entire massif and offers some of the world's most famous treks, including the Annapurna Sanctuary and the Annapurna Circuit. Number 5. The Vinson Massif. A colossal formation in Antarctica, the Vinson Massif stretches 13 miles long and 8 miles wide, lying within the Sentinel Range of the Ellsworth Mountains. Now, unlike a single mountain peak, a massif refers to a compact group of connected mountains or a section of a planet's crust that is demarcated by faults or flexures, making it geologically distinct. Vinson Massif exemplifies this with its sprawling structure that includes Antarctica's highest peak, Mount Vinson. It is towering at 16,050 feet and discovered in 1958 by U.S. Navy aircraft. This massif overlooks the Ronnie Ice Shelf, and it's located about 750 miles from the South Pole. Its prominence and its isolation have made it a significant objective for mountaineers, despite its remote location. The first successful ascent was made in 1966 by an American team led by Nicholas Clinch, and the expedition was part of a larger effort by the American Alpine Club, and was supported by the National Science Foundation, the National Geographic Society, and the U.S. Navy. The Vinson Massif was named in 1961 by the Advisory Committee on Antarctic Names after Carl G. Vinson, a U.S. congressman from Georgia, in recognition of his significant support for Antarctic exploration. The conditions here of Antarctica make climbing Mount Vinson a formidable task. Despite this, as of 2010, approximately 1,400 climbers had attempted the ascent, drawn by the mountain's extreme isolation. The height of Mount Vinson was precisely measured in 2004 by a team from the Omega Foundation, confirming its current elevation at 16,050 feet. The mountain is ranked 6th in the world by topographic isolation, further highlighting its remoteness. Number 4. Eiger. The Eiger, standing at 13,015 feet, is one of the most iconic mountains in the Bernese Alps of Switzerland. It is the easternmost peak of a ridge that includes the Monch and the Jungfrau, forming a massive trio that defines the skyline of the Bernese Oberland. Now, unlike a single peak, Eiger is part of a massif, that compact group of mountains connected by ridges and sharing a common geological foundation. Its most renowned feature is its nearly 5,900-foot north face, known as the Eiger Nordwand, or simply the Nordwand. This sheer wall of rock and ice is the largest north face in the Alps, and it's earned a fearsome reputation among climbers. Since the first ascent of the Eiger in 1858 by Swiss guides Christian Ulmer and Peter Boren, along with Irishman Charles Barrington, the mountain has become a magnet for mountaineers. The Nordwand's difficulty and danger have made it legendary, with at least 64 climbers losing their lives on its slopes since 1935. This grim history has led to the North Face being dubbed the Mordwand, or Murder Wall, a pun on its German name. Despite the dangers, though, the Eiger has been made accessible to non-climbers through the Jungfrau Railway, which runs inside the mountain and features 2 internal stations. The Eiger Wand station is positioned behind the north face, and it was once a vital part of the rescue efforts for climbers in distress, but has not been regularly served since 2016. On the southwestern side, the Eiger Glacier flows from the ridge connecting the Eiger to the Monch, descending to around 7,900 feet near the Eiger Gletscher railway station. The Eiger's north face is known as one of the trilogy of Great North Faces in the Alps, along with the Matterhorn and the Grand Jurassus, and it continues to challenge and inspire climbers. The face's notorious upper section, called the White Spider, is a snow-filled web of cracks radiating from an ice field, which played a dramatic role in the first successful ascent. Climbers today, though, often choose and tackle Eiger in winter when the cold stabilizes the crumbling rock face, but the climb still remains a test of endurance, skill, and sheer willpower. Number 3. Shishapangma. Shishapangma, standing at 26,335 feet, is the 14th highest mountain in the world, and it holds a unique place in the annals of mountaineering. It's located entirely within Tibet, and it's the only one of the world's 14 8,000ers that lies solely within Chinese territory. Shishapangma, known locally as the Abode of God, sits 5 kilometers from the border with Nepal. It is part of the Jugal Himal Range, which is a continuous range with the Langtang Himal. Now, unlike many other peaks in the Himalayas, Shishapangma is situated on the northern dry side of the Himalayan crest. The mountain has a distinct geography, featuring a subsidiary peak known as the Central Peak, which rises to 26,273 feet. This peak is often the subject of controversy among climbers, as some ascents have only reached this slightly lower summit, leading to debates about the validity of the climbs. The true summit, which is 62 feet higher, is accessed via a dangerous ridge that takes about 2 hours to travel from the Central Peak. Shishapangma's climbing history is marked by both triumph and tragedy. It was the last of the 8,000ers to be climbed, with its first successful ascent in 1964. Since then, it's become known as one of the more accessible 8,000ers, particularly in the North Route, which is favored for its relatively straightforward approach. Despite its reputation, though, as one of the easier 8,000ers, Shishapangma has seen its fair share of failed attempts, in fact, 31 of them. The mountain's steeper southwest face presents a more technical challenge, with a 7,200-foot ascent on a 50-degree slope that tests even the most experienced mountaineers. Number 2. Lhotse. In the heart of the Himalayas, Lhotse is the fourth highest mountain on Earth, standing at an incredible 27,940 feet above sea level. It's located on the border between the Tibet Autonomous Region of China and Nepal's Khumbu region. Lhotse forms a critical part of the Everest Massif, connected to its more famous neighbor, Mount Everest, by the South Col. Despite the close proximity to Everest, though, Lhotse remains formidable and often an underestimated challenge for mountaineers. The first serious attempt to scale Lhotse was made in 1955 by the International Himalayan Expedition. Although this expedition didn't reach the summit, it did lay the groundwork for future attempts by mapping the region and understanding the challenges posed by this mountain. The main summit of Lhotse was finally conquered on May 18, 1956, by Swiss climbers Ernest Reiss and Fritz Luschinger. This success was a significant achievement, marking Lhotse as one of the last major Himalayan peaks to be summited. The mountain is part of a horseshoe-shaped arc that includes Everest and Nuptse, which is towering peaks forming a natural fortress of sorts. Its main summit, accompanied by three other notable peaks, Lhotse Middle, Lhotse Central 2, and Lhotse Shar. The primary route to the summit follows the same path as Everest South Col route up to Camp 3, after which climbers diverge towards Lhotse. The Lhotse face is a steep and icy wall on the mountain's western flank. It is one of the most formidable challenges for climbers. Rising over 3,600 feet, this wall consists of 40 to 50 degree slopes with occasional 80-degree bulges, making it a true test of skill. Weather conditions here at Lhotse add another layer of difficulty to the climb, of course, because the mountain is subject to the harsh and unpredictable weather patterns here in the Himalayas, with temperatures often plummeting well below freezing and high winds creating whiteout conditions. Climbing it is not for the faint of heart. The mountain's south face, in particular, is known for its extreme difficulty. This face is incredibly steep and exposed, with rock falls and avalanches being constant threats. The technical demands of the climb, combined with the harsh weather, make Lhotse one of the most dangerous peaks in the world. The icy northeast face of Lhotse remains unclimbed. That's an example of this mountain's unforgiving nature. Number 1. Nanga Parbat. Nanga Parbat, standing at a formidable 26,660 feet above sea level, is the 9th highest mountain on Earth, and one of the most treacherous to climb. It's located in the Gilgit-Baltistan region of Pakistan, administered by Kashmir. Nanga Parbat is the westernmost anchor of the Himalayan range, towering over its surrounding landscape. Known for both its beauty and its challenge, this mountain is a magnet for adventure seekers, yet it's earned the ominous nickname Killer Mountain due to the numerous mishaps that have happened on its slopes. The first successful ascent of Nanga Parbat was achieved on July 3, 1953, by Austrian climber Hermann Buhl. His ascent was remarkable, not only because it was the first, but also because it was completed without supplemental oxygen and entirely solo, a feat unparalleled in the history of mountaineering on 8,000ers. This victory, however, came after years of tragedy. 31 climbers had already lost their lives attempting to conquer this mountain, driving home its unforgiving reputation. Nanga Parbat's name, which translates to Naked Mountain in Urdu, reflects that stark and imposing presence. The mountain is surrounded by lower peaks, making it exposed to high winds and volatile weather. Mountaineer David Gutler described Nanga Parbat as being, quote, like an island surrounded by way lower peaks, end quote, which makes it extremely vulnerable to sudden weather changes. The mountain has very short good weather windows, further complicating things. But one of the most formidable features of Nanga Parbat is the Rupal face, often referred to as the highest mountain face in the world, rising 15,090 feet from its base. This sheer wall of rock and ice is a daunting challenge for even the most experienced climbers. On the northern side, the Rakyat flank offers a somewhat more gentle slope, yet it still rises 23,000 feet from the Indus River Valley to the summit, representing one of the greatest elevation gains over such a short distance. The dangers of climbing it are numerous and severe. The steep slopes are prone to avalanches, really during the warmer months when the snow and ice begin to melt, and the remote location of Nanga Parbat adds another layer of difficulty. Rescue operations are challenging, if not impossible in case of an emergency. But one of the more popular routes up the mountain is via the western Diamir face, which avoids some of the avalanche dangers posed by the hanging glaciers that threaten you overhead. However, even this route is fraught with difficulties, including unpredictable weather, technical climbing, and the physical demands of high-altitude mountaineering. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.
Please subscribe to my channel, Quantum Dataverse. Thank you.